Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Old Bridge Township October 8th, 2018 meeting. Please stand for a Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As is customary in this chamber, we stand for a moment of silence to thank those who protect our freedoms, both here and abroad, for our first responders, for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and tonight, Councilman Cahill would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to acknowledge an Old Bridge resident who recently passed. Maria Rubo was a neighbor of mine, lived across the street from me. She passed after a long illness. She was obviously a wife, a mother, a grandmother. She worked for Waka Realtors for many years. Actually, was my realtor. I bought my house from her. She lived across the street from me. She's also the mother-in-law of one of our officers, Officer Penley. So with that, may she rest in peace, and I'd like to offer a moment of silence, please.
Thank you. Mr. Pescitti, the prayer.
O Lord, bless thy servants in the ministry of public affairs who serve thee in this chamber. Give them quiet minds and hearts that they may hear your voice. Help them to know when to speak, when to be silent. Give them strength to oppose the wrong and uphold the right. Grant that they have a good conscience and soul, at peace with thee and with one another. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated.
This meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspaper, and notice of the meeting has been posted in public places. Next open public meeting of the council will be held on Monday, October 22nd, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Here.
And Dr. Greenberg? Here. Mr. Merwin?
Present.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Mr. Pescitti?
Present.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Here.
President Soha?
Here.
9 present.
Good evening. I would like to proclamations and certificates. Mr. Acting Mayor, Mr. Shaw.
The first proclamation is for the Put the Brakes on Fatality Day. Whereas October 10, 2018 has been declared Put the Brakes on Fatality Day by the Township of Old Bridge, Middlesex County, State of New Jersey, and whereas across the nation traffic crashes causes approximately 35,092 fatalities in 2015 and are the leading cause of death for young people aged 15 to 34. And whereas in New Jersey, 603 individuals lost their lives in traffic crashes in 2016. And whereas pedestrian-related crashes account for 27.5% of the state's traffic fatalities, while 19% of all fatal crashes involve distracted driver. Whereas motorcyclists, bicycle riders, and pedestrians face increased risk on New Jersey's roadway as people opt for alternative mode of transportation. Whereas 66 motorcycle, 18 bicycle, and 166 pedestrians were killed in New Jersey in traffic-related crashes in 2016. Whereas safe driving behaviors such as buckling up every ride, obeying posted speed limits, stopping for pedestrians in crosswalk, and using crosswalk when walking, avoiding aggressive driving behaviors, never driving impaired, wearing proper safety gear when riding a motorcycle or bicycle, and focusing solely on driving by avoiding distractions can dramatically reduce the number of traffic-related injuries and deaths. Now, therefore, Owen Henry, Mayor of the Township of Old Bridge, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim October 10, 2018, Put the Brakes on Fatality Day, and call upon everyone to put these life-saving behaviors in practice to improve safety on roadways in our community and throughout the state. The next proclamation is for Healthcare Security and Safety Week. Whereas October 14 to October 20, 2018 has been declared as Healthcare Security and Safety Week by the Township of Old Bridge, Middlesex County, State of New Jersey. Whereas healthcare security and safety officers play an important role in Old Bridge healthcare sector. Whereas healthcare security and safety officers are the first responders to security and safety incidents in clinical and office settings. Whereas healthcare security and safety officers are tasked with protecting all patients who work, visit, or receive treatment in healthcare facility. Whereas the demands of skilled healthcare security and safety services continue to grow, whereas professional healthcare security and safety is an important component in the county, in continued safety, quality, and accessibility of healthcare in Old Bridge. Now therefore, on Henry, Mayor of the Township of Old Bridge, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim October 14 to October 20, 2018, Healthcare Security and Safety Week, and call upon everyone to put this life-savings behavior into practice to improve safety in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shah. Next will be the bill listing. Mrs. Walker.
Accounts payable, October 8, 2018, $10,801,650.63.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Greenberg Belli, second by Mrs. Walker.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Peschitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll, September 28, 2018, $901,551.18.
Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mrs. Walker, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Peschitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll overtime, September 28, 2018, $28,735.02.
Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Greenberg, second by Mr. Rizzoli, and a breakout, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Council President. As Councilwoman Belli Greenberg had indicated, the total overtime for this period is $28,735.02. For this period, there was only small uptick in arena for their opening of arena operation needed additional time. In the police department, the sworn officer payroll for this pay period was $22,082.44. When you deduct for ETO, $7,613.14. Net overtime was $14,469.30. We have one officer injured on duty this pay period.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Peschitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
That concludes the bill list.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Walker. Public hearings and ordinances for second reading. H1, Release Reduction Performance Guarantee, Arctic Air Conditioning, application number 25-15P. Good evening, ladies.
Council, this application was in front of our planning board for an expansion of existing parking lot that Arctic Air has. Their building is located on County Route 527 at the corner of 527 and Pleasant Valley Road. Their expansion resulted in some restoration of pavement, striping, stormwater pipe installation, and some site lighting. The performance guarantee that was posted by the applicant was $102,396.60. of which in bond form was $92,132.64. Cash portion, which represents 10%, in the amount of $10,236.96. Of which all the work was performed and completed satisfactorily to what was presented to the board and as inspected by our engineering department. The only thing we recommend is the payment of all outstanding escrow fees. And again, as in the past, this application is not subject to any maintenance bond.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to open up to the public. If anyone in the public wished to be heard on this. Seeing no hands, I will close the public portion and now open it to council. Any council person has a question? Mr. Murphy?
Are you okay with this whole thing? Look, that's you.
She has to introduce herself.
Oh, yeah, please introduce yourself. Yeah.
Other than the things accepted, there's no other exceptions you have.
Council Murphy, are you talking to me? The engineering department has inspected it and found that everything is,
You have
yes,
no exceptions?
no,
You have no exceptions to anything on there?
no, sir.
Okay.
And-
I
Just
make
for
a
the
motion to
record.
pass it.
Okay, and for the
Just
record?
For the record, my name is Kiara Mancini, and I'm from the firm of Howbrun Pape, and I represent the applicant.
Okay. So we now have a motion from Mr.
Second.
Murphy, second by Mr. Rizzoli. Okay.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscitty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soham?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. And thank you, Mrs. Shapiro.
Council President, if I may, before we continue with the remainder of the public hearing, in light of the last couple of meetings, and I've brought this to the attention of council before, and then most recently in a subcommittee meeting that I've had with Councilman Rizzoli and Cahill, I brought up the issue of decorum and having appropriate decorum. There's actually a provision on the Township Code dealing with Sergeant of Arms. And I think it's important that the public and the council are aware of it, because unless people comport themselves appropriately, I think it's a provision that should be invoked so that we can avoid what happened last week and in prior weeks, because I don't think that this council, as a professional matter, should conduct themselves in that way, and and then that extends to the public as well. So under Section 524, which is entitled Decorum at Meetings, Sergeant at Arms, it states, "The Director of the Department of Police or such member or members of his department as he may designate shall be Sergeant at Arms of the council meetings and shall be in attendance at council meetings when requested by the council president. The Sergeant at Arms shall carry out all orders and instructions given by the presiding officer for the purpose of maintaining order and decorum at the council meeting. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who shall become boisterous while addressing the council, shall be barred by the presiding officer from further attendance at that meeting of the council unless permission to continue is granted by a majority vote of the council. Any person who violates the order and decorum of the meeting shall be guilty of an offense punishable as provided by law. Upon instruction of the presiding officer, it shall be the duty of the Sergeant at Arms to place such person under arrest and cause him to be prosecuted pursuant to law, the complaint to be signed by the presiding officer." I would hope that we wouldn't have to invoke this provision, but it certainly is my recommendation, given what has occurred over prior meetings, that it's something that's available. And my recommendation is that the council president, as presiding officers, utilize the provision if necessary. And we do have our Sergeant of Arms present.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rizzoli. Next will be preliminary public comments to the council, subject to the following conditions and restrictions. During the preliminary public portion of the meeting, any person may address the Township Council on any subject matters for a maximum period of 5 minutes. Any such person desiring to speak during the preliminary public portion shall first sign a list maintained by the Township Clerk for such purpose. Comments during the preliminary public comment portion of the meeting shall not encompass second reading ordinances or any other matter for which comment or a public hearing is to occur at the meeting.
No one signed up at this time.
So seeing no one signed up, I will close this public portion, and now I will go to council member comments. Anyone? Mr. Murphy.
On that ordinance that you just brought up about the sergeant at arms,
Yes.
does that have to happen in council chambers or can it happen out in the hallway?
This only applies to council, this particular provision applies to council, council meetings. It's about
During the meeting?
conducting-
Okay, thank you.
Okay, does anyone else have council comments on the left? No? Seeing none on the right. Okay, Mrs. Dr. Greenberg?
Yes, I'd like to talk, I'm a commissioner on the MUA, and I'd like to talk about a project that the Old Bridge MUA instituted with emergency fuel storage. If everyone remembers Sandy, we were without electricity for, average resident was, possibly between 10 and 14 days. But because of the work of the employees of the MUA, everyone had water and everyone was allowed to flush their toilet without having any problems. Our pump stations, the fuel, actually a lot of workers even went down to, as far as to Delaware to get fuel to keep those pump stations functioning. So when we had a catastrophe like that, the wisdom of the MUA came forward with a project, and we were recognized by the NJI Bank Project of the Week, and I'll just read you a few things about it. And it's about the Old Bridge MUA Emergency Fuel Storage Facility. The authority received $1,390,000 in water bank loans, which actually turns out to be an estimated savings to the ratepayers of $597,000. The project included the construction of an emergency fuel storage facility and the installation of two 10,000-gallon fuel storage tanks. Also included were fuel pumps and a shed for housing monitoring and safety equipment. This project provides the township with a guaranteed flow of safe drinking water, the quality of which exceeds state and federal safety standards. It is an example of the MUA's effort to upgrade and expand the system as needed to ensure a more than adequate water supply at the lowest possible cost, and you will have fuel available at any time now during an emergency. And actually, that's used throughout the whole town, having a facility of this nature right here on our municipal complex by the road department. So thank you to the wisdom of the MUA for moving forward with this and getting this project done, that we won't have to be in fear ever again if we ever had a catastrophe like that of our system shutting down. Thank you.
Madam President?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Piscitelli.
Yeah, hi. I also want to echo those comments from Anita. The MUA has done an outstanding job. I don't know if anybody's on Twitter, but, they get water breaks every once in a while, and these guys are out there repairing 24/7. They're out there, and they're repairing within 3 and 4 hours. It's amazing. So kudos to those guys. Good job. And hope they keep up the good work. I also want to mention last week at the planning board, the site of the town center was approved, which is the corner of Cottrell Road and 516, and it has no residential component. It's all commercial, and it's going to continue that town center look as right across the street there. So it looks like it's a really nice project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Piscitelli. Anyone else? Mrs. Walker?
Yes, it's Fire Prevention Week this week, and I just want to announce that Cheesequake Volunteer Fire Company will be having their open house this Saturday, October 13th, from 12 to 5. Please stop by. It's usually pretty exciting. It's a great day for the kids, too.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else for council comments? Yes, Mr. Cahill?
Thank you. So, Mr. Roselli, talked about the provision, the 5-24 Sergeant of Arms. We had the subcommittee meeting to talk about the discussion item we talked about last meeting around Robert's Rules. I think it was last Thursday, if my memory serves. So, good meeting. I think one of the takeaways is that Mr. Roselli is going to look at to see if there's any gaps in our current ordinance and anything relative to Robert's rules that maybe we might take out that would need to be inserted. I would say, though, that if you look at 5-20, which is meetings of the council, it's a pretty thorough checklist, if you will, of how we should conduct meetings. There's a lot of information in there, and I'm just saying, I think the council, it'd behoove every council member just to refresh themselves as to what those items are. And then also, just from a subcommittee perspective, as we take as we kind of end the subcommittee and look for council comments, then you can kind of see if there's any gaps that we missed that maybe you would want to include. So again, I just encourage the council to just review 5-20 meetings of council, and hopefully within the next meeting, I believe, we're going to try and have some sort of a draft to the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Anyone else on this side? Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I'd also like to echo pretty much what Anita said. I've been probably the longest living member of the OBMUA, and since I've been there, they've been tremendous. They're still better than ever. And during Sandy, I got a call. I was a consultant at the time. I got a call from the engineer. We have 1 day of fuel left. They were coming in with Illinois in 3 days. Middlesex Water Company, I called them. They had 3 tankfuls that they couldn't get rid of, like 27,000 gallons. I asked them if they could deliver it. I called my late brother, I asked him who was in charge of the water at the gasoline at the township, and he said, I am. So I said, well, do you need it? He goes, we need it badly. He was going to try to call Mr. Macho. I guess he got in touch with him, but we showed up there. We got all 3 tanks full. So it was a teamwork thing between the township and the MUA, and it was done very well. And like I said, the MUA is run by 2 great people, Michael Roy and Guy Donatelli, and everybody there, right from the foreman down, are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Anyone else for council comments? Okay. I will close them by saying that today we had a very special event here at the 9/11 Memorial, and it's a group called Stride and Ride, and they were doing a relay. It's a relay that starts up in Boston, and it's 911 miles, and it winds up in Arlington, Virginia. And it was just inspirational to listen to them, how they are so dedicated to making sure that all the first responders, all the people who perished in 9/11 are always and forever remembered. It was a very moving ceremony, and there were several council people here as well, and I really thought it was just an amazing day. Okay, next will be council report of the Township Clerk.
Okay, the only thing I have to say is rabies clinic is Saturday, starts at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for dogs, and 11 to 12 for cats. Please have them contained or leashed. You don't need anything. If you have your postcard, that would be helpful if you bring that with you. Your dog doesn't have to be licensed, your cat doesn't have to be licensed at that time. We just want you to come in and get a rabies shot. If you're not from Old Bridge, you're still welcome to come in and get a rabies shot. Doesn't cost you anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Report of the Township Attorney.
Nothing at this time, Madam President.
Thank you.
Accept the report.
He has no report of yours. Yes, we're going to accept the report of the Township Clerk.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, moved by Dr. Greenberg, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscotti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Now the administrative report, Mr. Shah.
Thank you, Council President. The administrative report for October 8, 2018. Item number 1, bonded anticipation note sale. On October 2, 2018, the Department of Finance received 5 bids for the sale of $4.1 million of bond anticipation notes scheduled to mature on April 9, 2019, ranging for net interest cost of 1.95% to 2.5%. The winning bid from Amboy Bank has a net interest cost of 1.95% or $39,530.83. We continue to enjoy our high, quality bond rating from Moody's. Item number 2, 2018 Fire Prevention Week. The week of October 7, 2018 has been designated Fire Prevention Week by the National Fire Protection Association. The theme for 2018 is Look, Listen, and Learn. Be aware, fire can happen anywhere. Fire district's officials will be holding open houses and visiting district schools throughout the month of October to educate residents and students on fire safety and preventions. For additional information on Fire Prevention Week and related safety tips, residents can visit firepreventionweek.org. Item number 3, New Jersey Natural Gas Renewal Project in Cliffwood Beach. New Jersey Natural Gas contractor J.F. Kelly Construction is completing gas mains and services this week on Pacific Boulevard and Middlesex Avenue. Will continue with Hilltop Avenue and Sunset Avenue the week of October 8, 2018, weather permitting. A representative from J.F. Kelly or NJNG will contact residents in advance of service being interrupted and turned back on. The roadway within the work zone will be temporarily restricted to through traffic except for local residents, buses, and emergency vehicles during construction activities. Every efforts will be made to accommodate the residents and business owner during construction. Should residents have questions, they may contact Mike Fried, J.F. Kiley Construction Company at 732-984-1793. Item number 4, paper shred event on Friday, October 12, 2018. The township will host a special paper shredding event at 3 various locations. Residents can bring their confidential document to Chisqueck Village from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and Public Works Yard from 12 noon to 2 p.m. and at Plaza Grant from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. For more information, contact Recycling Coordinator at extension 6107 or email recycling@oldbridge.com. Item number 5, Ice Arena. The John Piccolo Ice Arena is slated to open to the public on Monday, October 15, 2018. Please check the website at oldbridge.com/recreation for the public session skating schedule or call the Parks and Recreation Department at extension 4999. Item number 6, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. A breast cancer awareness tea party with representative from Hackensack Meridian RBMC is scheduled for Thursday, October 18, 2018 at 12:45 p.m. at Silver Lining at Old Bridge for registered member of the center. Advance sign-up is required. For more information about the event, residents should call extension 6615. For additional information on National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, residents can visit nationalbreastcancer.org. Item number 7, House Hazard Waste Day. On Sunday, October 21, 2018, Old Bridge will host Household Hazardous Waste Day from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Public Works Yard. For additional information, residents should email recycling@oldbridge.com or call extension 6107. Item number 8, Parks and Recreation Haunted House. Visit the Haunted House on Wednesday, October 24, Friday through Friday, October 26, 2018, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Civic Center. Spectacular will be held on Saturday, October 27, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. For more information, please contact the Parks and Recreation Department at extension 4999. Item number 9, Fall Leaf Collections. The Fall Leaf pickup schedule has been posted on the Township website. Collection begins in Ward 1 and 2 the week of October 29 and continue throughout November and December. Please visit the Township website to view or print the full schedule, oldbridge.com/recycling. Item number 10, 2017 Property Tax Reimbursement Program. The filing deadline for 2017 Property Tax Reimbursement Program, also known as a Senior Freeze, is Wednesday, October 31st, 2018. For first-time applicants, the application is available in the tax collection office on the first floor of the administration building. For additional information regarding the Property Tax Reimbursement Program, residents should contact New Jersey Division of Taxation at 800-882-6597 or the Office of Tax Collector at extension 2999. Item number 11, 2015 Homestead Rebate Program. With the adoption of State of New Jersey's fiscal year 2019 budget, eligible homeowners who receive homestead benefit credit on their May 2018 tax payment will receive an additional benefit on their November tax payment. The additional 2015 homestead rebate will be applied to the fourth quarter tax payment due November of 2018. Revised tax bill for qualified homeowners were mailed out the week of September 17, 2018. For additional information, residents should contact New Jersey Division of Taxation at 888-238-1233 or the Office of the Tax Collector at extension 2999. That concludes my report.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to pass this report.
Okay, did anyone have any comments first? John, just if anyone has any comments? No? Okay, so you're making a motion, all right, to accept it. Thank you, John. Who else?
Second.
Second by Mr. Peschetti.
Thank you.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Yes. Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Next consent agenda, I will first open it up to the public and then bring it back to council. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on any of the consent agenda items this evening? Seeing no hands, I will close the public portion, and now I will bring it back to council. Does anyone have any separations?
Madam President,
Yes. Mr. Peschetti.
C11, please.
What do you say?
C11, okay.
That's what I,
Okay, you're doing that as well. Anyone else? Okay. The only thing is, I would like to separate myself C6, 7, and 8 together for some comments. Anyone else for any separations? Seeing no hands, then I will ask for a motion for the balance of the consent agenda, please. Mo- Okay, motion
Second.
by Mr. Rizzoli, second by Dr. Greenberg.
Going to read which ones they are. You want me to read them?
Yeah.
All right. That's going to encompass the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10, and 10.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
yes.
Mr. Pescitti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes.
9 yes.
C6, 7, and 8, these are grants that were given to us by Columbia Bank. One of them is for an outdoor intergenerational vegetable garden at the Silver Linings at the Old Bridge Senior Center. One is to upgrade computer software and scanning equipment at the Silver Linings at Old Bridge Senior Center. And the other one is for a computer network upgrade at the Camp Robin building. And these are all been awarded by Columbia Bank, so I would like to say thank you, and I really appreciate how they work with the community. We could move them together, or do we have to do them separately?
I do as a group.
Okay, so we're going to do them then as a group.
I move it.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Murphy, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, and thanks to Columbia Bank.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes, and we're very grateful to Columbian Bank.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes, and thank you to the bank.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes, and thank you very much.
9 yes.
Next is C11. It's the proposed Township Council meeting schedule, year 2019. Mr. Pescitti.
Yes, as most everybody knows, some of the issues of having only one meeting a month, we get jammed up. So what I would like to propose is I would like to have an agenda meeting and then a regular council meeting. But on the agenda meeting, we should be able to pass bills. So I would like to discuss changing the schedule to have 2 meetings a month.
There are 2 meetings.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we're all clear.
Good.
You want to propose having an agenda meeting each month?
Yeah, one agenda meeting which we can approve bills, and a regular meeting, so no more combined meetings.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page as what you're proposing, before we move forward. Okay, so I will now defer to the attorney.
I guess the question becomes, what's an agenda meeting? What's the intent or purpose? That's, I guess, I'm not sure, would need clarification. And I guess to the extent that if a public meeting is advertised, when you say bills, you're just talking about things as they come due. If it's a publicly advertised meeting, I don't think that there's nothing in the law that would prohibit you from adopting or authorizing or approving bills for that particular purpose.
And according to our ordinance, there's supposed to be a workshop meeting and a regular meeting. And they've been combined in the past for efficiency and to streamline. However, what I have found, being on the council, is that, we kind of get blindsided. We don't know really what these things are for, so we like to be able to discuss them. And I've talked to other past mayors about this, and in the past, there was always a workshop meeting. Now, they used to have 4 meetings a month. I think that's overkill. But the 2 meetings a month work. I think to shorten that to 1 meeting a month, I'm opposed to that. And, I would like to consider having a workshop meeting. Now, there were some changes made because we had this discussion about things that should be discussed before they're up for first reading. And Himanshu, you and I have talked about it, and some things have changed, which are positive and good, and I like that. But the 2 meetings a month, I think, is proper.
Well, just a couple of clarifications. I think right now, most of the month, we do have 2 meetings a month. During the summertime, I think there is 2 or 3 months where we have 1 meetings a month. And the reason that happens is there's a lot of vacation takes place, limited personnel, and I think that was the reason that when the major overhaul took place about the council meetings and the agenda and the whole setup was because of the difficulty that we were facing. Now, by doing the 2 meetings we have right now, for example, September, we have 2 meetings. You're proposing we have 1 agenda and 1 regular, and we can pay the bills, but the problem is going to be, there's a lot of consent agenda items action items that we need to do. This is a big town, we have a lot of business going on. Not all can be crammed into the 1 meeting. I think you're going to see what happened last meeting, where consent agenda was about 40, 35, 40. Now, we made adjustment as we need, and one of the comments was that, hey, we are not sure that you're proposing discussion because the first reading you cannot have discussion as under the ordinance. So we said we'll put everything as a discussion ordinance, and I think that is happening. And so you're getting the information. The consent agenda, which is the regular kind of a day-to-day business, if you propose that, and maybe you want to propose saying that the ordinance discussion takes place 1 meeting and then included in following meeting, but let the consent, the bill list, the operational business continue, because it will be stagnantized, slow down dramatically, and we're accused of being slow as it is. So I think your intent makes sense, saying you want to do a discussion on the various ordinance before it gets introduced. That will accomplish, but I don't think you want to reduce the consent agenda items.
Point of order.
Well, you can.
I have the
it's just
floor,
explain,
John.
but go ahead.
Come on, calm
I think
down.
he's given some clarification And that's all, Mr. Murphy. Everyone will be able to speak.
You allow the bill list, the consent to have all the meeting that is proposed on proposed schedule, and we continue the process of having the ordinance to have a discussion and then introduce following meeting.
Yeah.
That will accomplish your intent.
Okay, and thank you for that, and I really appreciate that. However, this past year, we had six of the months only had one meeting in it, and they weren't all in the summertime. So my proposal is to have 2 meetings a month, and, hey, if some people can't make it, they can't make it, I mean, but
I don't believe it was 6 months. I think it was the summer months and then November. Yeah.
Yeah, November is when you have, holidays, Thanksgiving, and also you have league convention, so that creates a difficulty. But, I'm not, if you want to have a 2 meeting, that's council decision. I just wanted to give you some ideas.
yeah, thank you, appreciate the background. And I'm not, absolute what I'm saying. I would like as much information as possible, to make the right decision.
And it's our goal, administration, I can tell you, that we want the council to make informed decision. We want to provide you as much information. And I have made myself available to answer any question at any given hours.
Okay.
And another thing is
I
that
don't
all the,
disagree with you. We'll continue to put, the administration will put ordinance for discussion ordinance and not the first reading.
yeah, and I appreciate that.
Okay,
And I
Mr.
understand
Piscatty?
Department heads are here, and it would become an additional burden to have the 2 meetings instead of the 1 meeting out of those 5 months.
No.
So I get it.
Okay, Mr. Piscatty, Mrs. Ward would like to say something also, please?
Okay. thank you.
This schedule that's proposed tonight has either 1 or 2 more meetings than last year's. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you, Stella, appreciate that.
No problem.
All right.
Was there a second?
No, not yet, John.
Oh, I want to talk about it first.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, Tony, are you through, Mr.
Yes,
Piscatty?
thank you.
Okay, so then, are you ready, Mr. Murphy, to speak? Okay.
We just all got the thing of meetings tonight. I don't feel we should have a discussion tonight. I'd like to table it for 2 more weeks till the next meeting so we can have a chance to look at what the dates are and stuff, and then we can discuss it at that meeting more thoroughly. I'd just like to table it tonight. I
I'll
make that
second that
motion.
table.
Okay, so there's a motion to table by Mr. Murphy, a second by Mr. Piscatty? Okay, so roll call on a table.
Excuse
Mrs.
me.
Brown?
Sorry, I just want to know, are we approving the council meeting schedule or?
No, we're tabling.
We're table.
We're gonna table.
They need a little more time to look at
Okay.
it and decide,
Okay,
okay?
Your vote?
yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscatty?
Yes,
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay. Next will be ordinances for first reading. FR1, an ordinance of the Township of Old Bridge, amending Chapter 250 of the Code of the Township of Old Bridge, entitled Old Bridge Township Land Development Ordinance, by amending definition, section of the same.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Moved by Mr. Merwin, second by Mr. Piscatty.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Piscatty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Let's make sure it gets referred to Planning Board for their review
Okay, it goes to the planning board.
for
Okay.
adoption.
For adoption. Okay, thank you.
Before adoption.
Oh, I'm sorry, before adoption. I apologize. Okay. Next will be public comments on any subject matter. Is there anyone in the public this evening? Come forward, please. Good evening.
Good evening. Philip McGovern. Is this on? I'll say.
Whatever you prefer.
Philip McGovern, 201 Yorkshire Court in Society Hill. It amazes me how many people, seniors, do not know about the property tax freeze. I'm glad that Mr. Shaw brought it up tonight. I'd like maybe at the next council meeting, I will bring some information about it. It's critical. People don't know about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGovern. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to be heard? Good evening.
Good evening. There's an item on a discussion.
Can you just state your name and...
Alan Rosencrantz, David Drive.
Thank you.
There's an item on the discussion list tonight, nepotism ordinance removal of police.
Yes.
I think if you're going to remove the police, you should remove everybody. It shouldn't just be one section of the township employees.
Okay,
I think that
thank
would
you.
be unfair to the rest of the...
Thank you for your input. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to be heard? Seeing no hands, I will now, I'm sorry, come right up, come right up. Good evening.
Good evening, council and business head. I was a little disappointed last week hearing direct
Wait,
tax.
can you just
I'm
give
sorry.
your-
Nina Jochnowitz, 203 West Greystone Road. I am so sorry, I always forget this.
No, that's okay, go
Down the
ahead.
street from Salk,
Right.
by the way. I was really disappointed last week hearing the word, 2 weeks ago when I heard the word stalking being used between council persons. I think that's a very difficult word. That's a charged word. And I think that folks should consider picking better words when talking to each other, about each other, and within this audience. Because the word stalking, to me, that's pretty intimidating. I'm sure everybody in this audience and anybody who will ever watch this would think when somebody's stalking that they should be arrested. The same way somebody in the audience who spoke about somebody punching, one of the council persons punching, unless they were charged with punching somebody else, I think I remember that 2 weeks ago, unless somebody was charged with an assault charge, I think that the council should shut that person down. Yeah, or choking. I'm sorry, choking. Was it choking? Choking. I'm sorry, Mary, the councilwoman.
No, I was just trying to
Yeah,
think
no,
about-
I apologize.
Oh.
But finally, actually, what I really came up here for was there were two things. First of all, 2 weeks ago, you guys talked about giving money to the police chief, the lawyer for the police chief, and you didn't explain what that money was going to be used for, what kind of a lawsuit, what it was covering for. That was first, and I think that the public needs to know what that money was going to be used for. And then the second thing is that I live on West Greystone Road, as we all spoke about. 2 weeks ago, you guys, Anita has spoken about it many times. She's extremely concerned about Route 34 and the risk of the road. I've called the township, I have called the police, I have called traffic. I've had everybody on my road to see the dangers of that road. They don't want to put speed bumps in. They don't want to put road things to slow the traffic down. And they did put a sign up, a flashing sign, a flashing sign. But 2 weeks ago, the day after traffic came out, and the traffic officers are lovely, one of the buses stopped to drop my son off, and a car nearly flattened my son on the road. And that was with the bus's lights flashing, and that's with me screaming and yelling that this is going on our street. And I would love if you council folks would come on down to my street, look at the ATVs, look at the dirt bikes that are driving up down my street without license plates, and then, of course, at the speeders that go up and down my street, putting all the children, and there's at least a dozen kids on that road at risk every single day because they use it as a causeway between Englishtown Road and Spotswood. Just a thought, if you guys could do it. I know I have bothered council people to look at it, but I think that, and the police, but I'd really love you guys to take a look-see, okay? I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Good. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the public this evening?
Councilor,
Yes.
just not to, I don't want to engage in conversation, but the only thing I recall at the last council meeting was a resolution authorizing a contract for counsel for the chief, and I think another police officer in connection with litigation. Those types of representations are authorized either collective bargaining agreement or township code, in which the township's obligated to provide counsel typically for purposes of punitive damage claims. And the reason being is that our insurance carriers do not provide defense for punitive damage claims. So in those instances, when a police officer is a part of a lawsuit in which is alleged and there's punitive damage claims part of the allegation, they're provided separate counsel for that particular instance, and I believe that was the reason why it was on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no more hands for the public portion, I will now close the public portion. Next will be appointments. First one is A1, Utility Authority, OB/MUA vacancy. Term expires 1/31/2023.
Madam
I
President,
nominate Steve Florek.
Before we begin, I just want to be clear about the process. And as it has been done in the past, what will happen is for the positions, there'll be a call for nominations. There'll be, whoever nominated gets nominated. Then the chair or the council president would, to the extent no more nominations are presented, there'll be a close on nominations. Then there'll be a vote on the nominees in the order in which they're nominated. The first person to receive a majority of those voting. Now, again, I'm not, at this point, has been done previously because we're dealing with the MUA. The issue has come up is that no member of the council should be, because there are some employees of council member who work for the MUA, to the extent that you have a member who lives in your household under our ethics rules, that person has been precluded to vote in connection with the appointment, since obviously that the MUA member deals with the employee of the MUA. So in that instance, and again, I just threw it out there, I'm not sure if who those members may be, but if that's the situation, then you would abstain. That vote is not counted. And so then, so then it would leave, again, the person has to receive a majority of the votes. If nobody receives a majority of the vote, then ultimately it would be a tie, and then my suggestion would be is that you continue to open up for the position and receive additional resumes to the extent it's not filled. One additional suggestion, depending on the number of nominees, given, again, not knowing how many nominees there would be, let's say if there's 2 nominees, you would take the roll call, first person gets majority passed, but if you go through and nobody gets a majority, I would recommend that you go through again for each individual in the event that some member may change their vote, because the goal is to try to fill the position. So after you go through it, if you had 2 nominees, you go the first time, then you would go through again for each of the nominee, depending if someone receives a majority, and then whoever receives a majority first would be the appointment. And again, if nobody gets a majority, then you would continue to have the nominee open.
Okay. We have a nomination.
No, can I ask the lawyer something?
Sure.
There's something called the Doctrine of Necessity.
Yep.
And how does that apply? Does that apply, and how does it apply?
No, typically a doctrine of necessity, it's usually invoked in school boards because, unfortunately, there's always conflicts in school boards because somebody's either a wife of a teacher, a wife of a superintendent, to that extent, and usually when it's invoked is when there's not either a quorum present to vote or there's not enough people who can vote. In this instance, we have, well, there's 9 of us here. So unless there's 5 conflicts where there'd be 4 persons, which I don't anticipate because it hasn't been the case before, the doctrine of necessity would not come into play.
Okay, so we know for sure we can't invoke the doctrine of necessity, correct?
Unless we get 5 conflicts.
5 conflicts, okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we have 1 nomination for Mr. Florek and a second for Mr. Florek.
You don't need the second, just so we're clear.
All right, and another nomination?
I nominate John Murphy.
Okay, John Murphy. Is there anyone else for a nomination tonight?
Second Murphy.
Okay, so we have 2 nominations, and I'll close it. Anybody else? No? Okay.
So you'll close the nomination?
I'm going to close the nominations, okay, and we'll proceed with the voting.
So the first person is in the order, the order would be, Mr. Florek would be first.
Mr. Florek.
So you take a roll call.
Mr. Florek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's in the order of nominations that you
Okay.
take to vote.
Mrs. Brown?
No.
Mr. Cahill?
No.
Dr. Greenberg? No. Mr. Merwin?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Mr. Pescetti?
Abstain.
And just so it's a record,
Oh, for
Steve.
I thought you said John Murphy.
Can we
I thought you said John
I think it was
Murphy.
a
This is
confused,
Steve.
yeah.
Took a vote already.
Take my vote back. It's for Steve Florek, yes.
Do you want me to start over again?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
start
can you-
over again.
just-
Just
it-
start
Right,
over
this is
again.
It's confusing because you said John. You said John.
again, the reason for the, excuse me.
Let's stop.
Again, for abstentions, it's to the extent that there's a conflict, that would be the reason. And unless you don't have enough information or knowledge, but I don't think that's the case. So in this instance, I guess that there's a conflict for Mr. Pescetti. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's the basis for the abstention. So you can
This is
start
for,
again.
this is for Stephen Florek. Mrs. Brown?
No.
Mr. Cahill?
No.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Mr. Pescetti?
Abstain.
Mr. Rizzoli?
No.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar?
Yes.
3 yes. 5 no. 1 abstention.
The abstention's not counted, so it's just 3 yes, 5 no's.
Okay, now we're going to go on.
Yes. Next
John-
one.
To John Murphy. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Abstain?
Again, Mr. Cahill, again, the basis for an abstention is either conflict or you don't have enough information or knowledge regarding the,
Want to abstain, he's a peer, and I don't feel like, I don't want to vote either way.
Dr.
so, okay. No, it doesn't. Good.
Okay. Dr. Greenberg?
Yeah, no.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Abstain.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
No.
President Sohar?
No.
4 yes, 3 no.
It's 4 yes, 3 no's?
Yes. 4 yes.
It's a plurality, though.
I know.
You need a majority.
Right.
You need a majority of the persons of the council. And I went back and I checked Robert's rules because you have enough people here, so you need a majority of the people present in order to, in a situation where there's an appointment. So again, what I would do in that instance, the vote you wouldn't be nominated for the 4-3 vote because it's a plurality.
Right.
So I would go back in this instance, you have 2 nominees,
We go
and bring it up again.
Okay. So
Okay, all right.
Stella, could
So
you
we're gonna
please
do
start
Steve-
again?
We're going to do Stephen Florek again. Okay. Mrs. Brown?
No.
Mr. Cahill?
No.
And Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
No.
Mr. Murphy?
No.
Mr. Pescetti?
Abstain.
Mr. Rizzoli?
No.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Sohar?
Yes.
We have 3 yes and 5 no. And we're going to go back to Mr. Florek.
No, Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Murphy.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry,
right, still.
Mr. Murphy. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
No.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Abstain.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
No.
President Sohar?
No.
5 yes, 3 no.
Okay.
5 yes, 3
So
no.
passes.
Yes,
It
so it
passes,
passes,
yes.
okay. All right. Okay, next is a two-appointment film and television vacancy. Term expires 12/31/2020.
I move Mr. Mancini.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Merwin, second by Mr. Rizzoli.
Any more nominees? Would you?
Stella, is there anyone else? Anyone else nominating? Nope, that's it? Okay, then roll call, please, Stella.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Pescetti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay. Next will be discussion D1, nepotism ordinance, removal of police.
Thank you, Council President. Actually, Mr. Rosencrantz stole my thunder in the beginning. I am for both the civilian and our sworn personnel. I just want to get into this ordinance that, I understand what happened in the past, but I think it's time that we move forward. I think denying anyone an opportunity to get employed by the township for any individual, regardless of his or her name, I think it's wrong. I think if we break this down, when you look at the police department, you have a written test, you have a physical, you have a background check, you go to a police academy, and as far as our civilian personnel, there's plenty of technology today. I don't think, you're going to have the, whatever the abuse was years ago, no members of this council are engaged in it. And right now, the ordinance can be manipulated for cronyism, so, we can throw isms around all night. I just think it's time that we move forward and abolish the ordinance for the entire township. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to bring out the point that you brought up, it wouldn't be appropriate to split it up and distinguish between employee groups, because you're right. So you have to treat everyone equally. And again, the other question becomes, there's a provision that talks about elected officials and relationships as well. So when you indicate, like for governing body members, so indicate the removal, or if you want to do away with the whole ordinance, just to keep in mind is that's something as well that you want to remove, so that it would open up the ability for relatives of an elected official to be hired by the township as well, because that's currently included as part of our nepotism code. Just something to think about.
So, do we have to
Madam President?
issue this?
Well, again, this is a discussion, so I'm just bringing that to the
Right.
forefront. We're not just talking about employees. I mean, the question becomes,
Mr. Roselli, how about we just keep it where
Is a poison pill-
When it comes to elected officials, we could always leave that, is what you're saying.
right, is the poison pill other employees of the municipality, or is the poison pill other employees and elected officials?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is that originally this was put out to the public as, nepotism, removal of police. So I don't know if there's other people that might want to come based on the fact that now we'd like to just eliminate the whole, the whole thing. That's what I'm asking you.
Well, look, again, it's a discussion item. Council, to the extent that, you think it warrants further discussion to that point, that's council's discretion. It's on as a discussion item. So certainly, if that's a concern, being that it was listed as such, and you want to, warrant further discussion, it's certainly that's within council's purview.
Okay, well, I just brought that up as my opinion. Is there anyone else that'd like to do some discussion? On this side, anybody? Mr. Cahill?
Yeah, thank you. I originally supported the nepotism ordinance when we introduced it. And I understand that, there's been a lot of changeover in the township with the, the business heads and, I don't see that anymore, obviously, because we implemented this, and I'm not being accusatory. I guess I'm just concerned that, we go from an ordinance that, I thought was pretty strong, send a message that we weren't going to tolerate nepotism, and then to undo that. And again, I'm not being accusatory. I don't think anybody in the current administration or the business, department heads would do anything like that. But I think it sends a bad message. There's a perception issue there as well, that the township is okay with certain nepotism practices, and that concerns me a little bit. So I don't believe I'll support this if this goes forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I pretty much agree with him. I also think what it did is it stopped hiring residents from Old Bridge. If you look at the list, most of them are coming from outside the township. It's like we won't hire people from Old Bridge. One of them, without a background check, was found shortly after, from what I heard, was a gang member. He was fired the next day. Someone else, a policeman,
I have to,
Mr. Murphy.
there was no such hiring.
John, I don't know,
Please.
that's a very,
all right, well, okay, well, anyway, I feel in addition to that, we should look inside our own township where we have very qualified people. We do not look there.
can I,
I really feel that we should. If you look at the list, give me the list, and I asked for a list when they were hired, you never gave it me. 3 times I asked for it, Mr. Macho. I'm not going to get mad at you or anything, but when I asked for a list, that's what I wanted to see.
Councilman,
But-
our hiring practice, and I explained that before, and Mayor has explained time again. We go by qualification, and when they equal qualification, we hire. There are plenty of township residents hire. Number 2, you ask for the information. Township attorney replied to you. He has replied twice, saying we cannot release personal information of an employee.
Yeah, but if it
So-
comes out, believe me.
The list of employees that were hired.
Okay,
Go to the township attorney for that.
Right.
But
I understand
please, do
that.
not say that we hire gang members. We have a thorough background check.
there was
done
no
by our
background
police
check for that one, but
department.
I'm not going to argue that. What I'm going to say, though, is you can't say based on qualifications. Who comes to this place? I'm not talking about professionals. Nobody comes here with qualifications on shoveling and stuff like that. And if qualifications are equal, I feel the Old Bridge resident should come first. Keep the money in the town. They will go to the local places. These outsiders, they're going to go back to their town to spend their money. Why are we so against Old Bridge?
We are not against Old Bridge residents. Plenty of Old Bridge residents hire when the qualified peoples are available in a position, in a labor position. We just hired 2
Then why
or
didn't you
3
send me the list?
Old Bridge residents.
Why didn't you send me the list?
Again, stop.
I had names.
Stop.
I'm done.
All
I'm
right.
done.
just one.
Stop.
Okay, 1 minute.
Again, I made it perfectly clear. There is a presumption of the township employees of privacy under Oprah. And then, and beyond that, to the extent that you're not required with respect to municipal employees, or governmental employees, to provide anything other than the individual's name, position, salary. That is it. And I think employees, if they knew that the township was handing out their personal addresses, would have a problem with it. I don't care who it's for. And again, we don't select who gets information and who doesn't get information. It applies equally. And council members, to the extent that it involves administrative employees, are just like the public, because these are employees of the administration. So I instructed that the addresses of employees will not be disclosed, because it's not required to be disclosed. And I would venture to guess that if the employees of this township knew that their information, their addresses were being given out, they'd really have a problem with it. So that's the reason why addresses were not given. The law doesn't permit it, and I wouldn't permit it because of that, because there's clearly a presumption for these employees that's private information that shouldn't be shared with the public at large. And in this instance, council members, because they're administrative employees, are the public at large.
Okay, you have a question,
Yeah.
Councilman Rizzoli?
Mr. Rizzoli, maybe we can form a committee, obviously, this way we can meet on this and all come to some type of agreement how we can work out this, to remove the nepotism ordinance where there is no, where we're trying to cover anything up. There's no perception like that in the public. I think if we form a committee and we can possibly all discuss things rationally, where we can come to an agreement, if that's okay with you, unless we have to move it forward this evening.
Certainly.
Could I ask you a question? Does anybody on the dais have family members presently working for the township?
No?
Then should he be allowed to vote?
Oh,
Madam Chairperson.
yes.
I don't think we need a committee to discuss this. I think we have our minds.
Let me just let him answer Mrs. Walker's question, and then we'll go right to
But
you.
I just want to
promise.
finish, Ms. Rizzoli had posed a question, if I could, Council
Yeah,
President.
right.
Again, subcommittees are within council's purview to the extent that you want to form a subcommittee, that's the will of the majority. If you want me to participate, again, that's part of my role, I'll certainly do that, but that's up to council.
Council
And now-
President, I
Madam
would like...
Chairperson.
I'm sorry.
Before we
I'd
go
like
on.
Sergeant at Arms to speak about our background check.
Just asked me to mention to the council.
Yeah.
We have people, the council that wants to speak. This
You know,
is
you
our
speak.
meeting.
I promise everyone will have to speak. This will give us maybe a little more
This is
clarity.
our meeting, not the business administrators' meeting. This is a
I don't
council
think,
meeting.
yeah, no, but I don't.
Dave, calm
Look,
down.
let's stop.
Let the
Let's
professional
stop.
speak.
Recognize whoever you want.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just trying to be very fair to everyone. I think Captain Mandola is someone who could give us some more information before we continue on. It's not meant to stop anyone on the council from speaking. I will let everyone speak, but maybe he can give us a little more clarity.
Just to clarify real briefly, any township employee, any person that's going to get hired by the township, their names are given to us, the police department, and we do a thorough background check on them. That's all.
Hiring of any gang members that are criminals or anything.
Let us continue on. Mrs. Walker had posed a question. Are you going to look into that for us?
Yes.
Okay, so Debbie, was there anything else you needed to add to that before we move to Mr. Merwin?
No.
Okay, Mr. Merwin?
I think Mr. Rizzoli's idea of a committee is great, because a blanket removal of this ordinance I could not support.
Okay.
I think there are some parts of the ordinance that are somewhat restrictive, but at the time, I guess they were needed. I don't know, I was not on the council at the time, but I don't think the public would want us to just blanketly remove this anti-nepotism ordinance, so.
Okay, that's your...
I think the committee would be a great idea.
All right, thank you for your input. Anyone else? Mr. Piscitty?
Yes, I would like more information. You know, I understand Councilman Cahill was involved with passing this ordinance. I'd like to know, you know, some of the reasons why. I did speak to our business administrator, and he gave me quite a few different reasons why it exists. You know, I heard stories of, you know, police officers that want their sons to come on to the police department. They can't because of the law. And that seemed to me a little reverse discrimination. So there is definitely two sides to this issue. So,
Clarify, that's your opinion, but I can assure you there is no discrimination. Again, everyone up here have to remember, you're an elected official. You have to be careful in how you speak, because words have meaning. So when you throw out a word such as discrimination as an elected official, you're indicating that the town is condoning that. We do not condone discrimination.
okay, I
The-
correct
the-
that.
the
I
ordinance,
meant
the
the
code
bias.
is not discriminatory, so let's be clear.
I meant the bias, not a
But
discrimination.
it's not bias either. It's just, it is what it is. There's plenty of agencies, governmental agencies, that have provisions that prohibit this type of actions and activity. It's perfectly legal.
Okay. You can continue, Mr. Piscitty, if you like, or are you through?
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone on this side of the dais would like to say anything else? Anybody? Okay. Would anybody else on this side, any other comment? She asked, Debbie, she asked about...
The question became, to the extent, and this is why I brought up, I mean, the issue with respect to elected officials. You know, the exempt people who are elected officials and taking that type of conflict away because of the fact that that's in theirs now. So the question is, to the extent that a sitting member, because you indicated that you have a relative who's currently employed by the township, is this something that, because of that, you should participate in the discussion and the adoption of the ordinance?
Okay, there is no law on that, is there, that you would know of?
The question becomes, it's not a matter of law, it's an ethical issue, and how our ethics, how the township's ethical rules, how they would apply, and if it would be appropriate.
Okay, I have a big problem. They are harassing me. The vice chairman called me an a-hole in the meeting outside. That was uncalled for. These are the people, they're just against me, that's all it is.
Okay. Yeah, we have to...
So I think think the question, unless anybody else wants to talk on that.
Anybody?
I think the question being posed by Councilman Rizzoli and Councilman Merwin, if there's a majority who wants to form a subcommittee for the purposes of reviewing the ordinance, and then if so, the members and number. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
For what ordinance? Of what?
For the,
No, he was talking that they said about, I'm talking about what they did to me. Oh, okay.
yeah, no, at this point, we were discussing having a subcommittee because there are several council people who have, questions and concerns. And I think everyone is interested in trying to come up with something they feel is very fair and equitable. So do we have a consensus for a committee?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Committee.
All right. Anyone else is interested in sitting on this committee?
Mr. Rizzo, would you mind?
I work for you all.
Oh, I just want to double check with you.
I make Kenny be on committee now.
Oh, okay. All right. So is there anyone who would like to sit with Mr. Rizzoli and Mr. Rizzelli for a committee? I'm hearing crickets here. Anybody? I'm just trying to,
I don't know, maybe they don't like the Rizzoli. I don't know, maybe.
Well, I'm just saying, is there anyone else that would be interested in doing this so we could have at least two council people like you did with Mr. Cahill before? No, I'm just saying you two did a committee together, so we would need at least two council people.
If nobody's going to take it, I'll do it.
I don't know if John can do it.
Yeah, at this point, it probably wouldn't be the best selection, given your current situation.
Okay, so, do we have anyone else that would like to sit with Mr. Rizzelli?
I guess they're sitting by themselves, okay.
I shower, I really do, twice a day sometimes.
Oh, jeez.
I'll bring the pasta.
All right, anybody? No? All
The
right.
administration is going to be part of this, or this is the
All
attorney and
right, then we
council?
have the
committee?
orange. Yeah. Okay,
Certainly you can participate, but they're talking about an ordinance, obviously they adopted.
okay.
It's developed.
All right, so then the two of you will sit down and discuss,
And
and
Mr.
you'll come
Shaw
back?
wants to participate.
Okay, and our business administrator. Okay, so that makes three.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Good? Okay.
Can we just have a motion and roll call on that?
Yep.
Motion.
Okay, motion and
A
second.
motion to establish a subcommittee for purposes of reviewing the existing township code provision dealing with anti-nepotism. That would include Councilman Rizzoli, myself, and the mayor.
Okay.
The mayor's designee.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Rizzoli, second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Merwin.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
No.
Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Fisketti?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
No.
President Soha?
No.
6 yes, 3 no.
Okay, next we will be going into executive session. Will we return? Because otherwise we'll do council comments now.
No, we don't have a need to return. We do not have a need to return.
Okay, so then do you want to do council?
I want to just say one
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, no, John, just give me 1 minute, okay?
Okay.
'Cause now that we're going into executive session and we're not returning, I will open it up to council comments before the public leaves, okay?
Adina, give me,
John, it's council comments, okay? So do you have a comment? Okay, no, that's what I'm saying. You're
Dana.
answering- Okay,
Nina, what's her name?
Nina.
Hey, just call me, I'll come and check it out, okay?
No, I know. I actually plan on that, by the way, when I get an appointment with the police department.
Well, I'll take a look at it first if you want. I'm not going to say anything, but it's up to you, whatever you want to
John,
do.
it's council
Okay.
comments, all right, hon?
All right, bye.
All right?
Point of order.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, council comments, anyone else? Mr. Rizzoli?
Rizzelli, right now for discussion, I'd like to introduce an ordinance, in the form of an ordinance that we limit one member of council on the MUA as a commissioner. And I'd like to move forward for first reading.
Do that right now. Discussion? It's not listed.
What are we doing?
Wait, ladies, 1 minute. Okay.
I want to.
Everybody be quiet.
For discussion now, I want to introduce an ordinance limiting one member of council to, as a commissioner on the MUA. I'd like to move it forward in form of an
It's not on
ordinance.
the.
All right, wait.
So again, so I think your first step would be is to have it listed as a discussion item.
Okay.
Right, so you can, and again, you could list it as a discussion item for the next council meeting, and then after you discuss it, then you would move it. That would be the process.
Thank you, council. That's why I just asked you on that.
So, any other,
Only limit one council member.
okay. Do you have any more comments? Mr. Rizzoli, no?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Merwin? Okay, yes.
If you recall last month or at the last meeting, we had the issue of Raceway Park's mass assembly permit come up.
Yes.
And that mass assembly permit was not supposed to be issued unless all of those items were addressed in the ordinance. And the one thing I said was EMS has to approve the EMS portion. Well, that didn't happen. Second, the ordinance calls for 3 doctors, 6 nurses to be on scene, as per our ordinance. All right? Now, I know our ordinance was a knee-jerk reaction in 1978 to the Grateful Dead concert,
I remember that.
all right? And there is a lot of things in there that need to be addressed with a clearer head. What's it, 40 years later?
Reevaluate.
All right? In this day and age, there's not a need for doctors at the scene. We have paramedics who are directly in contact with doctors. So there's a whole lot of portions of this ordinance that need to be readdressed. And it wasn't anything that Raceway Park did. It's on our behalf. Now, I don't know who could approve an EMS plan when the plan clearly calls for 3 doctors, 6 nurses, besides the ambulances to be on the scene. So we need to address that mass assembly ordinance, bringing it up to today's standards so that we don't have these problems, because these problems continue to happen every time there's a mass assembly out there. A, they're not following it because it's ridiculous for them to follow it, and probably very cost prohibitive for them to follow it. I mean, I don't know what you would pay for 3 doctors and 6 nurses to be on scene for a 12-hour event. All right, but if we can, I think that is something that we need to address, or we're going to have this problem every time there's a mass assembly permit. I mean, we have the clerk sending it to this one, sending it to that one. What a fire official has to do with EMS is beyond me. I mean, that should be going to the EMS. So probably one of the things that we look at is that everything should be going to OEM, and OEM should be disseminated to the chief and to the fire and to the EMS and getting it back and then presenting it back to you. All right, but that is something that we definitely need to look at to bring that 1978 ordinance up to today's standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else for council comments this evening? No? Okay, seeing no one else, then we will look into that, Mr. Merwin. We'll have to have a committee, but we have to make sure we have everyone that we need to participate in that.
Definitely.
Right, can we have you need a motion to adopt Resolution ES1 for purpose of going to executive session to discuss 2 litigation matters, Levine versus Township of Old Bridge and OB Thames versus Township of Old Bridge.
Motion.
Mr. Rizzoli?
We're adjourning to executive session. We will not be reconvening.
Okay, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Piscitty.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Kale?
Yes.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Merwin? Mr. Merwin?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Piscatty?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
President Soha?
Yes.
Can we take a
Yes.
5-minute break?
Now, that committee,